Hello again, this is Steve Hicks with Windermere with another short video on some helpful terminology this time that you're going to run into as you go through the residential sales process prior to closing. I just want you to be familiar with some of these terms because they're going to be thrown at you and you want to know who's playing what role. So let's start with just 5 or 6 basics, and I think that will be really helpful for you. The first one is a listing agent. That would hopefully be me. The listing agent is the one that's heading the advertising and the marketing sphere of selling your house. And the listing agent represents the seller, usually almost always exclusively. He's your, or she is your guy or gal in the process of selling your house, representing you solely. He or she is in your corner to promote your best interest. That's a listing agent. A selling agent represents the buyer. And so the selling agent's job is to represent that buyer as well as they can, to get the buyer the best deal, to provide protection for a buyer through closing so that the transaction closes. And in that respect, they work with the listing agents to do that. Very important because it usually takes 45 days to close a transaction from the time you accept an offer, in other words, you're in contract with the buyer, until it actually closes, settles, and you get your money from the sale. And during those 45 days, both the listing and the selling agent need to be very well versed in the escrow process. That is the term used to describe that period between accepting a contract and actually having it closed. Because there are numerous things that can blow that process up and cause it not to close. And if it doesn't close, then you have to usually give the buyer his or her earnest money back, and you have to go back on the market, and you've lost that momentum that you had being the new kid on the block when you first came out of the market. So that doesn't happen to me because I know how to ask the questions in advance regarding the qualifications of a buyer, and I know the process inside and out in terms of what is going to be asked for by the escrow agent, the title officer, the lender, etc. So it's really, really, really very important that you hire an experienced agent to represent you that knows all the potential pitfalls for that. Escrow. On the West Coast, we have escrow basically being handled not by attorneys, but by escrow companies, sometimes title companies. And their function is to collect and disperse funds. For instance, they're going to take the escrow check and the earnest money check and deposit it in escrow, and they will be dispersing the final funds to you and paying all your closing costs at the end when you get there. They are neutral agents. They do not represent either the buyer or the seller exclusively. They represent both of you. So you can't ask them legal questions because they can't take sides. Once again, if you have any legal questions at all, I can always give you my opinion, but the best thing is to consult an attorney. A title officer and title insurance. When you sell a piece of property, you always need title insurance to protect both you and the buyer. The title insurance ensures that you really do have a right to transfer this title, or rather convey it to the buyer. It also verifies that you are you, that this identity is you and you are the person signing for it. That's why these things have to be notarized. And the buyer has title policy premium obligations also for their bank. Protections against forgery, protections against lot lines that are not right, etc. and so forth. So that's what the title insurance does. If something turns out to be wrong after it closes and it's insured by the title company has to pay for it. As you can imagine, that doesn't happen very often because the process the title company uses to investigate buyers and sellers and properties is pretty thorough, and they don't pay many claims, I would think. However, it's good to have that insurance so you don't get involved in a lawsuit with the buyer. So then there's a title officer that is responsible for reviewing the title, making sure there's no encroachments or unanticipated liens or easements that nobody knew about, or judgments or IRS liens or anything like that. that could stop the closing from occurring. I also am in constant contact with my title officer to spot things like that. In fact, once you've agreed to hire me, if that's the case, which I hope it is, I always pull a title right away, right in the beginning, like when I'm listing a house, so that because it takes 5 days to get one, and you can therefore know if there's any problems on your title, which you might not even know about. There could be, it's like a credit report. There could be mistakes made on it, and you have a note about it, and you wouldn't know about it until you went to sell your house. And then all this stuff has to be lined up so that it can close. Those are the basics. There's other things, but I think I'm at my time limit, so I'll let you go with that. Hope it's been helpful. Call me with any questions. Steve Hicks Windermere, thanks for listening.